then just because of the fact that he's a YouTuber and he's polarizing and a lot of people don't like him, none of that really matters. If he's putting the time in, he's going to keep getting better. Yeah. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah.
So Nick, the problem child, Jake Paul, the guy everybody loves to hate, got himself a first-round knockout against albeit not a great boxer, but a very tough fighter and competitor in Ben Askren.
That's right. Martial arts, his newest bad boy, or infamous fighter is Jake Paul. He's officially here and finally tested his skills against a real combat sports athlete. And all I know is I wasn't expecting it to end as quickly as it ended.
Yeah, I give you credit. I picked Ben Askren to win the fight. You picked Jake Paul, so good call there. I did not expect it to end in the first. I mean, Ben Askren, as I said, and I think I was justified in saying, has been hit in the face by Robbie Lawler, has been, he's taken punches from some of the most prolific and powerful strikers that the welterweight division in multiple MMA organizations has seen. And to go out from a straight 1-2 by Jake Paul, it speaks to the fact that Jake Paul is actually doing what he's saying he's doing. And he says, I'm dedicated my life to boxing. I'm in the gym. I'm practicing sometimes twice a day, 6 days a week. And it's showing. And he's coming along as a boxer.
Yeah, he definitely is. And he was definitely the more skilled boxer in the ring last night compared to Ben Askren. And obviously has spent a lot more time working the craft and the skill set of boxing than Ben Askren. I will say Ben looked better than all of the other opponents so far that Jake has come across. But Paul also looked much better than he has in his previous fights. He's had a true gradual skill evolution that we've been able to see from the first time he fought with headgear, where he looked just as bad as the YouTuber he fought, to last night where he looked like he was a composed lower level boxer. I mean, I'm not going to say he's not a boxer. He's stepping in the ring. He's fighting people that, at first glance, you would probably consider him to be an underdog against. And he's getting his hand raised at the end of it. So he's a competitor, he's a fighter, and he's a winner.
Yeah, I mean, like it or not, Jake Paul is a professional boxer. Yeah. He's a professional boxer with an undefeated 3-0 record. Say what you will about his opponents, but those are the facts.
Yeah.
Ben Askren, it's no secret that his strength in fighting was wrestling. He went all the way to the Olympics in wrestling. He was a guy who's in his late 30s. He was retired. He just had hip surgery. Put all of that aside, Jake Paul standing across from him, showing composure, even getting hit. Jake Paul, I wanted to see how he would respond when he actually got clipped. Because if you watch the Nate Robinson fight, Nate never really hit him. Nate was kind of closing his eyes and swinging. As we said, it's somebody who had never sparred before, somebody who's never really punched another person, or at least not in the confines of the boxing rule set. Maybe Nate's had a few street fights in his life, but there's never been anybody that has punched Jake in the face who actually is a skilled, trained fighter. And I wanted to see how he would respond if he got hit. And he did. Ben hit him early. He was actually the first one to land a decent shot. It was kind of like a hook from the back that landed on Paul's face. And Paul kind of took a step back, regained his composure, threw a few jabs, recollected himself, and was able to go on some offense of his own. So I'm seeing the evolution of his game. And if anybody, the reality is you can be a famous YouTuber, you can be a nobody, you can be somebody, who's coming from very humble beginnings. The bottom line is that if you put the work in the gym, in the ring, you're going to get better and you're going to progress. And if Jake Paul wants to continue to box and get better and progress, then just because of the fact that he's a YouTuber and he's polarizing and a lot of people don't like him, none of that really matters. If he's putting the time in, he's going to keep getting better.
Yeah, I said it in the last segment we did about Jake Paul. It doesn't, just because you're a famous person doesn't exclude you from being able to compete in something that you want to compete in. He just happens to have a lot of eyes on him when he does compete in combat sports. And I think we're going to see much more of Jake Paul competing. He was kind of out of sorts and unlike himself in the post-fight stuff, so you didn't quite get the hot takes and the call-outs and all of that stuff. You still got the brash personality that he is, but a little bit more reserved. I think there were some issues with his camp and a close friend of his passing away that kind of threw his mood a little bit. But what I saw at the end of the fight was Jake Paul legitimizing himself as a boxer to Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Because you can't really feel that great about yourself when you beat up a couple of YouTubers and then you 30 seconds into the Nate Robinson fight, I feel like Jake knew that, okay, even if I do knock this guy out cold, he's not a real boxer. I'm not going to get the respect from the boxing community or the combat sports community that I want. And, I don't really deserve it. Nate Robinson's clearly never thrown a punch at somebody else or had one thrown at him. So I feel like having a fight where he was able to showcase some skills, outclass another martial artist, and even, of course, Ben Askren's not a boxer, and that's the weakest point of his of all of his skill sets, and he's possibly the worst boxer skill-wise that MMA has ever seen.
Right.
But it's still a competitor from the highest level.
He's still a real fighter.
Yeah. He's a real fighter. He's been in there with real fighters. And I feel like that was a big day or a big moment in the boxing career for Jake Paul to get a win over a legitimate tough guy, a legitimate badass in Ben Askren. And, when it comes down to it, we thought that Jake would come out a little bit crazy and a little bit reckless. He came out very composed. Ben looked composed as well and was able to. You did say he landed the first shot, and I will say that was the first shot landed, and it was relatively well thrown. Any shot that lands is technically a good shot, right? But there was no power on it at all. I don't think with the 12 weeks that Ben gave himself to train for this fight that he learned how to throw with any sort of power.
Right.
And going into last night, I didn't really know exactly where Jake Paul stood as a star or a member in the Triller family. Now I understand that he is the guy that they're trying to hype up. They're trying to promote. They're putting him in all the commercials. They are really putting a lot behind Jake Paul, and it makes total sense. They're smart people. They matched this fight up, and I feel like they took a calculated risk, said, look, Ben's a tough guy. He's got a great resume for you, but at the end of the day, he's not going to have power to knock you out, and he's not going to learn it quick enough before we can get him in the ring with you. And so it was a smart move by them. I think it was really good that Triller is able to continue rolling forward with their superstar. And at the end of the day, Jake Paul does deserve some credit. The punches he threw were pretty crisp. He still has a little bit of that balance issue that, it takes a long time to get rid of. But other than that, he looks very, very powerful, and he looked really good with that KO.
Yeah, the problem that Jake's going to run into is just how big he is. He's a cruiserweight.
Yeah.
He's fighting at 190 pounds. That's one step down from heavyweight.
Yeah.
So you're talking about Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. Those are the guys at the top of the heap, one weight class above where Jake's fighting. So if he's going to try to really compete, and he says he wants to rise to the highest levels of boxing, and he's still in his early 20s. So theoretically, by the time he's 30, if he really is training twice a day, 6 days a week, and dedicating his life to this, he could rise to a very high level in boxing. I don't think he can rise to that level if he stays at 190.
No.
He's got to be able to get a proper weight cut, bring a dietitian in, and maybe bring himself down to like the 168, 175 light heavyweight ranks, because he's just simply not going to be able to contend at cruiserweight.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we have a lot of good things to say about Jake and his progression. The promotion itself, the fight card was just an absolute disaster. It would have been better if they had cut Oscar De La Hoya's mic off. I don't know what he was on when they brought him on, but you have people smoking in the booth, drinking in the booth. You've got an hour concert in between fights. I think I speak for everybody when I say nobody wanted to see that. Even though I'm a fan of some of the musicians, especially like Justin Bieber that performed last night, if I want to watch Justin Bieber, I'll watch Justin Bieber on YouTube. I don't need to see him in between fights, and then a bunch of people that I didn't even know who they were.
Yeah, and the backstage footage was weird.
Yeah.
They're showing not only like famous celebrities going and talking to Jake Paul in the background, but then they're showing just like Justin Bieber getting out of his car and hanging out in the back for, it's just a very strange thing that they have going on. It almost feels like, and not in a good way, Snoop Dogg is hosting a party and getting drunk and getting high and doing whatever he wants, and all of his friends are allowed to join him. And
there happens to be fights there and concerts.
And there's fights that take place once every hour, if that, and random concerts where there's nothing but lip syncing and twerking going on, kind of like a striptease. It's not for me. It's not for the the regular fight fan. It's not family friendly, which I do believe Triller's trying to appeal to a younger audience. But if I'm a parent of somebody that's under the age of 16, I don't know if I want them spending 50 of my dollars to watch what I saw last
using
night.
the language and the smoking and the drinking and the I mean, listen, I get it. It's a fight. There's people in the we train to be cage fighters. We get in a cage and we fight people, but even still, there is a certain level of class and professionalism that a promotion should bring when they do something like this. And I think they missed the mark there. Here's the other problem that Triller is going to have. Is they're riding on Jake Paul and then people like, Mike Tyson coming back for a one-off against Roy Jones Jr., stuff like that. But they're bringing now Teofimo Lopez in for the next pay-per-view card that they have. Teofimo, albeit he beat Lomachenko, fantastic boxer, multiple organization world champion, he's not by any stretch a pay-per-view draw yet.
He's known and respected by boxers and the MMA and the whole martial arts community all over, but nobody knows who he is.
Exactly. So the people, I said all that to say essentially this. Triller, if they're going to promote a Teofimo Lopez fight, the people that are actually going to go through and click buy on a $50 pay-per-view have no interest in seeing Doja Cat and Justin Bieber perform. They want to see a night of fights, and they want to see them back to back like how they do in other organizations. I think that Triller, their business model, while I get it, they're trying to do a mix of really high level boxing, and as we said, one of our fellow gym mates, Regis Prograis, looking really fantastic against Ivan Redbach, I think is how you pronounce his name. And, so you had some high-level stuff go on, but you really didn't see a lot of that. People were watching that to watch Jake Paul. And I think when they do their next performance with Teofimo, if they continue with all the antics in between fights, it's just not going to go over with the crowd that's trying to buy the Teofimo fight to watch him box.
Yeah, not at all. And, the everything, the commentators, when you have a group of commentators, you need them to be consistent throughout the night. There were times where Pete Davidson was sitting in for Al Bernstein and Mario Lopez was getting replaced by God only knows who, Lil Wayne or somebody like that. You've got these just random people coming in and sitting in and rolling up blunts and smoking and drinking. Yeah. And it's a very weird thing. And I honestly really enjoy hearing educated commentators speak on a sport. Imagine if you just had 3 or 4 drunken high guys talking on Sundays when the NFL's playing,
right?
And they don't have any idea. They don't know a jab from a hook. Snoop Dogg doesn't know. He's just trying to make funny jokes that, like he thinks that his friends will laugh at. Maybe some of them will because they're they just want to be friends with Snoop Dogg. I don't really know, but it's a miss for me because you've got 4 or 5 people that are now intoxicated on multiple levels that are speaking over each other, and their microphones aren't getting shut off at the right times, and now they're all just jumbling words across from each other. And you've got fake tough guys like Mario Lopez telling you he's the most legit boxer of the entire panel, and Snoop Dogg's telling him that no, he's wrong and this is how the fight should be going. And I just feel like last time when they had Sugar Ray Leonard, though he didn't do that great, and Israel Adesanya on there, it was a much better production. I feel like this time it felt like a wild house party where anything goes. You guys are allowed to just go, party and do what you want, and we're just going to do whatever we want and throw this kind of reckless party, and it just seemed weird to me.
Yeah, and the camera angles were really bad.
Horrible.
Whoever was, the company that was brought in to do the filming, the actual video of the fights happening, and then different angles for different parts of the fight and things like that. They didn't know what to look for. No. They were, it was between the ropes at certain times, and it was like almost an overhead view. Yeah. It was really, really bad as far as that goes. Again, the people who bought that fight don't care about anything that I'm talking about. They bought that fight to watch Jake Paul. But if Triller is going to continue and try to be a legitimate boxing and fight promotion, the people who are going to buy these next fights are going to want to see a level of professionalism that they didn't really bring last night. And I felt like it was kind of a miss because the first one I was impressed with Israel. I thought Israel looked nice. He did a good job. And it felt like a regression. I was hoping to see a progression, and I saw a bit of a regression last night with their production.
Yeah, and the the location looked better last time. There was a lot of black. You couldn't really see much going around. This time, I feel like they were trying to highlight the background, and they had these steel cages and these.
Yeah.
It almost looked like a set from a music video.
And let's make the ring smaller so we can bring in the stripper poles. Like, it was very weird, very strange.
And none of that stuff worked for me. I mean, I'm only speaking for myself, but I, kind of keep up with the social media and the YouTube, and I was reading the comments, and a lot of people thought the same way we did. It just was off-putting in a lot of ways. Now, when you talk about the fight, yeah, Jake Paul got in there, did exactly what he needed to do. We don't need all the theatricals, the circus show around what Jake Paul's doing. Jake Paul alone and the antics that he does building a fight, especially when he's got a great business partner like Ben Askren helping him promote and sell these fights, that's the circus. We don't need an actual circus, an R-rated, X-rated circus happening around us the whole time. And, it takes away from the event. It takes away from the boxing. It takes away from, further progressing Triller Fight Club, because that's what it is. It's a fight night.
Right.
It just kind of screws up the whole thing. And one thing I will say that I was a little shocked at is they called it too early. Yeah. I think Ben Askren, while he did get rocked by that shot and it wasn't going to go any better for him after he hit the canvas, he was up within 5 seconds, walking back towards the ref, and really wasn't stumbling, kind of just walking how Ben walks. And it could be from the hip replacement that he walks a little bit funny, or maybe he didn't look the most clear-minded and everything like that. But the ref called that far too early, in my opinion.
I think you're right, and I think the result would have been the same regardless.
Yeah.
I think Jake was on his way to finishing him, but I think, and again, Atlanta is not really known for putting on that many boxing or MMA fights, so you're talking about the Georgia State Athletic Commission, and what we see with some of these commissions is some bizarre calls, and I think that was on the milder end of bizarre. I've seen a lot worse. You
were just saying that, and I totally forgot about that. I just assumed with all the pot smoking and the illegal narcotics that seemed to be going on that it was in California, but no, that's in Georgia. So I wonder what the Athletic Commission was thinking, or who got paid off in what way to let Snoop Dogg bring what seemed to be ounces upon ounces of marijuana. And I don't know what Oscar De La Hoya was doing. Hopefully he's just drinking water and eating fruit because he's preparing for a fight. But, he's been known to do some other things in his past. And to me, it seemed like there was multiple levels of narcotics being used by the same people who were drinking a ton of alcohol, and they just so happened to be calling the fight.
Yeah, no, it was just a total miss altogether, and that's unfortunate. But, going back to a positive note, Jake Paul did look fantastic. He did do an excellent job last night.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of thinking about who his next opponent should be. Obviously, the Dylan Dennis fight's out there. Those two are chomping back and forth as they have been for quite some time. Mike Perry threw his name into the mix. Mike Perry said he sparred Jake Paul. He went as far to even post a little bit on social media of him kind of walking Paul down and throwing some jabs. And you see Paul kind of circling out of the way and moving. So, okay, maybe there's something there. There's something to be had there. We know Mike Perry will bring the fight and bring the brawl. So I'm kind of intrigued. I think it'll probably be Dylan Dennis is who his next opponent will be. He's going to want to continue to look sharp against guys that don't necessarily specialize or do a lot of boxing. But who do you think?
Dylan Dennis is the obvious number one guy, but for some reason I feel like that one's going to get kicked down the road a little bit. And Tyron Woodley threw his name in the mix last night because he was in Ben's corner. He's a good longtime friend of Ben. And I do think that would be a horrible matchup for Jake Paul. Tyron Woodley has some serious power in his shots and has knocked out a lot of people, and he's still very athletic. He might have the wrestling pedigree, not quite of Ben Askren, but of a very accomplished wrestler, but he also has a lot of skills as far as striking goes. And I just feel like maybe that's one. You've got that guy who was 8-0 with 8 KOs that fought
the reggaeton artist,
Yeah, and I guess he's with Jake Paul's ex-girlfriend now, and she was cornering him. So maybe there's a love interest or love triangle situation they're trying to exploit over at Triller. And it seems like that would be artificial, and they would have to drum up some drama, and they would probably do that. But that actually seems like the kind of guy that a normal athletic commission would sanction against a Jake Paul if you took away subscribers and girlfriends and love interests and all that stuff.
Right.
Okay, we've got this guy, he's 8-0, and this other guy's 3-0. Let's put these guys together because this is a fair competition. So that could be the way they go. But I don't think that's the direction they're going to go either, because that guy is a nobody. Unfortunately, I don't know who he is. I watched him fight last night. I couldn't give you his name right now if I tried. And I feel like Jake's in the entertainment. He's in the entertainment industry, and he's not really worried about fighting real fighters. He's more about breaking pay-per-view numbers and trying to get over 1 million each time. And him versus that guy just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be interesting because I think he still does have a couple more fights where he can get away with fighting guys that are wrestlers or MMA guys coming over. But as he gets to that, if he gets to that 6-0, 7-0 mark, commissions are going to start to say, okay, now you're 6-0 with 5 knockouts, or you're whatever, 7-0 with 7 knockouts. No longer are you fighting wrestlers. No longer are you fighting people that have hip replacements or singers or basketball players. You're going to fight a real boxer now, or you're going to not be sanctioned to fight. Right. So I think he's going to try to milk the next couple of fights and still get away with it while he's only 3-0. So I'm leaning towards Danis, but it'll be interesting to see.
It will be very interesting to see. And, the last thing I kind of want to touch on with this is that maybe Jake Paul, he takes a little bit of time off, and then we see him fight later at the end of this year, potentially against one of these people that we just laid out. But I don't know. At the end of the day, we just want to see entertaining fights that are competitive, that leave both people safe before they step in the octagon. And a lot of these athletic commissions can be a little bit wishy-washy with what they allow and don't allow, depending on how much maybe they do or don't get paid.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just hope that whoever they put in there next is a worthy opponent, because Jake Paul has proven himself to be somebody that's taking this seriously and can seriously hurt somebody if they're not prepared for it.
No doubt. Well, guys, what did you think of the Problem Child's performance last night? Did you like the Triller production? Do you disagree with Nick and I? Did you? Maybe you guys loved the concert. We love to hear with you guys and chat with you in the comments. Let us know. And as always, thanks for watching our videos. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts. Until the next one, have a great day.
Peace.